We are here in our fourth or fifth Creativeside chat, which is, I guess, like a fireside chat, but in the Chuck Jones Center for Creativity and certainly the art world. This is a Creativeside chat. So there are different question and answer with different people, but today it's a studio visit, and so today it's Rob Kaz's studio. I've known Rob for, oh no, it's like 10 or 15 years. It's kind of frightening that it's been this long, but I'm excited to have known you and continue to work with you. And so many of the things that you're developing and creating today, especially some of my favorites with the new Looney Tunes characters that you're being able to play with. And I think my grandfather would be very excited to see what you're doing with his characters. So Rob, let's go from Southern California over to Florida. And I don't know which way that is, but I think this way is good. So Rob, let's you, and there's Rob Kaz. Everybody give him an air. Yes. Wait, everybody wow, there are people clapping. No one's they're not on mute, but they are clapping, which is kind of nice. So, all right, Rob. Well, hey, nice to visit your studio, and where exactly are you're in Florida, right?
Well, if you've ever been to Disney World, I probably could have hit you with a rock.
Oh, okay. So you're literally right there.
Right there. Actually, I live in a town that used to be owned and operated by Disney World, so that's close.
All right. Well, that's excellent. So how are you faring during these months? I mean, this is probably sort of downtime for you to have, 50 or 75 people come and visit you, but how's it going?
I'm eating a lot less because I don't go anywhere and I don't do anything, but at the same time, I'm getting a lot of work done. Hopefully you'll get to see some of it today.
That's great. That is great.
Tonight. Yeah.
Today, tonight, whenever it is. So, I'd like to start off just because I like to know how people got inspired. I mean, my grandfather always said that he could look at somebody's work, and you can go back to Rob. I just like talking. I don't want to see myself. Come on. Yeah, exactly. That Chuck always said that he could tell a great artist by how much fun they were having. And so it seems to me like you're having fun creating. And so I would be interested to know how it is, from a young age, you decided to get into this, and then how you made the transition to actually jump into this world.
I think right in your question is where I'll stop you. It's not a decision to do it. It's almost a compulsion. So I can't stop doing it because I enjoy it that much. And for those of you who know my career a little bit, I was going into law enforcement, but art was something I did for me. It was something that really slowed down my heart rate, got me to a different place, a place I'd rather be, if you will. And I enjoyed it just as a thing to do to get away from, the stresses of life. And beyond that, when life presented me with an opportunity to work in animation, I'm probably one of the few people you ever meet who accidentally became an animator. That was a life direction that I never anticipated, but wholly embraced. And now that I've made a transition. Really, I made the transition from animation to video games, and then video games to fine art. It was always because it was something I wanted to do. I loved to do it. So hopefully it comes out in the artwork.
Tell me about that accidental. I had not heard that about accidental. You're an accidental animator, because you've got good there, and I'll tell about this in a second. Go ahead.
As they say, truth is stranger than fiction. I was literally handed a letter that said, "Thank you, no thank you," for my allotment to be a United States Postal Inspector. And the same day, a gentleman who used to be a Disney animator started an animation studio and was looking for a color key artist, found my work that was on the walls of a house he was looking to buy, and said, "Who is this guy?" And I happened to be in the backyard crying my eyes out, where my brother came up and said, "Come on inside. You got to meet this guy." And he hired me on the spot.
How old were you then?
22.
Okay. Wow.
Oh, yeah, it's been a while.
Well, I will tell you that you said that it's stranger than fiction. Chuck actually accidentally got into animation because he came out of fine art school at the age of 17 after 3 years at Chenard, and right at the beginning of the Great Depression, and he needed a job, and so he answered an ad for a cell washer. There was no animation world back then. There was no training. There was nothing.
Right.
And so he went in and he literally started as a cell washer in animation, and then kind of got interested in it and happened to be good at it. So the two of you had the accidental animator journey. So you're in good company there.
Thank you for that honor. I appreciate that.
So animation projects, video game projects, and then transition into being able to, really use your fine art. And so tell me about that transition. How did that happen?
I was the transition from video games to fine art. That's what we're talking about. I was working at Electronic Arts doing Madden football, NCAA football, Tiger Woods kind of stuff. My job was photoreal human likenesses in a digital world space. Basically, I was in Maya and ZBrush all day long. This was 2007, 6, whenever, a year before the big recession in 2008. That put a real dent into the resources of a video game studio that relies on shareholders. And I don't want to bash them because they gave me an amazing opportunity. But I survived many a layoff. And I got to the point where I'm like, maybe I want to make my own future. And it was a gamble. I literally left a job making very good wages. And I would say 50-50, half the people there said, you're crazy, and the other half said, go get them, man. And I walked out, and then the recession hit. So it was like Cortez, man, burning his ships. I just went in and did a lot of festivals, started getting in with the local circuits and things, and trying to basically operate out of a tent. And I kind of realized really quick that wasn't for me, 110 degrees in the middle of summer trying to sell art. No. So from there, I met a few people, and fast forward, started doing galleries and cruise ships and things like that. I much prefer the air conditioning of a gallery versus a tent. Just saying.
I get that, yeah. But you could be here in Southern California. Instead, you're in a little bit of humidity down in Florida. But I understand being right next to Disney World down there.
Yeah, and that's why I look so young too. It's that humidity.
Yes, well, that's good. So where do you work at home? And is this where you work when you're regularly, creating at home?
Right. So you're actually in the room. It is a 10 by 13 bedroom of a 2-bedroom apartment. And what you're seeing is all I need. And I have canvases all over and wet paintings on the walls, some of which you can see in some of the cameras that my wife has set up for me. And we have definitely made the most of a little situation. Someday hope to expand, but overall, I would describe it as a very productive phone booth.
Wow. So are most of those acrylic or oil?
I work predominantly in oil paint. I will sometimes do a variety of like sculptures and things like that, but overall, I would say definitely oil paint.
Okay, so what does that smell like in there, in that small space?
Well, I don't smell it anymore. My wife says sometimes you got to get out of here. It's too much. But I have invested in 2 huge air filters that are underneath my easel here that run just about nonstop. And you can find them anywhere, and they do a heck of a job. But additionally, as an oil painter, I know that this is not great for your health if you do it a certain way. And I've really invested in things that have very low chemical smell, low VOC for those technical people out there, volatile organic compounds, and really tried my best to make everything healthy. So from there, I hope to live a long time.
Yes. Well, it is spectacular. I have not seen these in process that are there, but so why don't you tell everybody, including me, how long you've been working with these, great characters from Disney and Star Wars and, the whole gamut when you started going, because you're a fine artist as well, obviously, and you've got a whole body very much, again, like Chuck, loved his fine art, worked on his fine art constantly, but got to play with these characters that he got to do his own thing with. So how did you get started with that outside?
Well, we talked a little bit earlier about my career in studios, and a lot of it was before that. I mean, in law enforcement, everything, when I was doing things that stressed me out, things that I really don't want to talk about here because they're really downers, but painting always kept me going through the stresses. And animation and video games, they have stresses too. So I kept painting throughout that. And one of the things I like to do is on my lunch breaks is just swivel my chair around. I loved window seats, but in an animation studio or video game studio, they're not ideal. The monitor glare and all that. But I said, you know what, I like it. So I would spin around and look outside and see little creatures and frogs and ducks and whatnot and have you that were visiting my window. And overall, what you're seeing from my fine art is my imagination about what those little critters were doing and where they went from my window to the world beyond.
That's so cool. Chuck always liked having a window near him. There's so many parallels of this. This is awesome. When you got, so did you start doing Disney characters first in the fine art painting? Was that how you?
I started with my own personal series. We were doing a lot of cruise ships and some galleries with my fine art, and from there the Disney license happened, and I embraced that because I love Disney. Not as much as Looney Tunes. Not trying to kiss butt here, but the whole movement was a snowball. It started with Disney, and then from there Star Wars came around when the new films started happening with Force Awakens. That we launched the program for Star Wars and that, and then moving forward. Looney Tunes happened, I guess, between Star Wars and Disney. This is my memory. It's kind of like safety scissors. Sometimes it works. But overall, it was a snowball process, and I enjoy every one of them. And I describe it like changing the radio station, where you might be into a song and you're really enjoying it, but after a while you want to hear something new. And because there's so many, I've been lucky to do so many different licenses that I can change that radio station to just about anything that makes me happy. To talk about a farmer question.
That's great. Well, if you don't mind, we'd love to kind of take a look at what you're working on, what's in your studio. You can talk about, different works of art. And if anybody has questions, put it in the chat, and Scott Ryder or who's ever monitoring that can come up and show us, or if there's some questions. So as we go along, please. Look at that.
Yeah, so if you see a signature on it, that means I've finished it. If you don't, that means I'm still going.
Yeah. I think Ben has a question even to start with. So Ben's jumping in here.
So I've got a lead-off question for you. You're quite famous for that frog on your hat. Now the beginnings of Beauregard, right, and how that all launched, and I don't know any more of the story other than it lands on a windowsill or something like that. Was this at a studio you were at or at home? How did that kick off this entire empire of friends along the way?
Empire. Thank you for the kind words, and it's great to hear from you again. You're such a great guy and very generous with your words, and it's good to know you. To answer your question, like I said back at the video game studio, I would often wonder where these little critters would go. And in particular, there were a lot of tree frogs. Florida, we have these little green ones that are only in trees. And since we were on the 5th floor of this office building, we have these huge oak trees that kind of lean over. And I got to see a lot of them. And they inspire you to think about character design. My job at EA was character artist. I think I talked about that. But where it went from there, I'd say was a little bit more organic. I thought I was really working on, when I went into fine art, I thought I was really going to be doing scenics, landscapes, things that like take a Looney Tunes background instead, move the characters. That I thought maybe not that cartoony, but something that people wanted was landscapes. And being a character artist, I love painting landscapes. I have a whole series called Friends Along the Way, or excuse me, Places I'd Rather Be, because those are places I'd rather be. But back to the question, I didn't think anybody wanted something not serious, or that that something whimsical or cartoony might be acceptable in the art world, the fine art world, so to speak. And so I kind of avoided it. But then there was a day, and I remember I was at an art show in Ocala, Florida, and I unveiled two paintings, one called Hey You and one called Hey Me, and they were of the frog that I had been thinking about for years, about his little travels. And I painted him curiously interacting with a ladybug, and then him looking at himself, looking all kind of lonely. And to my surprise, I sold them very quickly and had two people fighting over them, literally fighting over them. And I was like, yep, I'm going to paint more of this frog. But really, it was my pleasure because it embraced the whole character side that my whole world was character design for I don't know, a decade. And to me, that was something I loved to do. And in the art world, or any job in the world, if you love to do it, it's not really a job. It's something you love to do that you just happen to be lucky enough to make a living at. So that's the frog. His name's Bo, by the way, or Beauregard. Named after our late puppy, who had the most cutest eyes. Just so expressive, yeah.
I think
Speaking of,
actually,
no, go ahead.
My brother had a stuffed animal when that just brought back, named Beauregard, and he had those that same sad eyes. I mean, when we were little kids, he had Beauregard, and it was this big stuffed animal. So I think every Beauregard has to have that sort of same look. So yeah, very, very nice.
In the contract.
So Ben, I know you've got follow-up questions because
I have a lot of questions for Rob, but like what I specifically because you mentioned your late dog, and I was very sad when I saw that post because I've had to do the same thing. But however, someone made a new addition in an appearance, I believe, yesterday. Could you just, if this doesn't, not that your art is fantastic and people will buy it hands down, they will also buy it when you see this dog and how he has to support this dog. Look at that dog.
We got a what do you call them? Oh my gosh, I'm blanking on the type. We got a Doris, help me out. What's the breed? Oh, Basset Hound. Excuse me. I don't know why I blanked on that, but we had our original dog Bo was a Dachshund Labrador and was very full of character. Used to stop cars, I swear. But everyone thought he was a Basset Hound, so I really fell in love with that size. And he passed about a year ago, and it really, it hurt. It really affected me more than I ever thought it would. But I would say that the best advice I got in all of that is to take that, and I'm gonna get choked up. Thank you. To use that in my work. So a lot of the expressions of my characters and the personalities are based on my late dog Bo, and he really affected me in a very positive way. And so now we have a new addition, and thank you for pointing that out. But we waited a very long time, and my other dog Kira's around here somewhere, but she's 15, so we're just thankful for every day she gives us now.
Well, and to your point on that, I think you had mentioned that little did you know that maybe it was a forecasting and a painting you did, a year and a half ago, that Hudson may have made an appearance before you even knew you were going to get him.
Yeah, you stalk me.
I stalk you. I'm sorry, but it's all in good nature.
I know. Yeah, I painted a painting that a good collector of mine acquired during, I think it was Art Festival or some Epcot Festival of the Arts. But I was painting a Basset Hound in a bathtub with a cat who was just got to get out of it. That I think it's called Time for a Bath. But if anybody has it, I know there's so many people working here. He's in there, and it's literally a Basset Hound with the same lemon white colorings and everything. So maybe I foreshadowed. I doubt it. I'm just dumb luck, I think.
So quick follow, and to kind of spin to your work that's on the easel right now. You're legendary for a lot of things you do, and in your story that you had mentioned, the guy that saw your work on the wall and was like, man, like you got to be doing this. So your lighting, your cinematic way that you light paintings, right, and just the way that things glow, your backlighting is incredible. I'm looking at the piece right now with the disintegrator and Daffy Duck. It is absurdly awesome how you can do this. Where did that come from, in that inspiration that you, because I know James Coleman is a big inspiration for you. He loves your work, you know, and saw that quality in what you were doing. Where did that come from when you were doing this, that just natural ability to light things the way you do just bursts from you?
Again, wow, thank you. I don't even know how to respond.
I just set him up. You got to hit him out.
Yeah, no, I don't know if I can. I'm benched. Well, basically, if you rewind my career back to its origins, I worked in at a very low position, a color key artist, which you're designing the light and the mood and the feel of art as a director, art director's position. Really had no business doing it at that point, but I got to work with all Disney talent. They had shut down their studio here in Orlando. So I give the people I work with a lot of credit for their inspiration to me, but also people like you mentioned, James Coleman, former background artist, people like that who were doing some amazingly explosive, cool art that you just, you know, the light felt so amazing, and couple that with my my next job in animation, which was as a lighter or a light director, really. So I got into a computer where they have a scene full of like a set and characters, and you tailor the lighting for that scene. And one of the things I always love to do is create little pools of light, because I feel like lighting sets the stage for the subject. That if you can, like a theater where the two main actors are on stage, and the lighter's job, the key grip or what have you, is designing light to showcase their performance. So stepping back from the artsy way I'm going about this, basically I feel strongly that light is what makes a painting. Pure and simple.
So
Love it.
So Ben, tell me about your favorite Rob Kaz painting to date, because I know you've seen a lot. I've already got mine, so we'll go back there in a second.
Well, I have not seen, this is the first time I'm seeing anything Looney Tunes. Could you go back to that shot?
Okay, that's what I'm to right now.
Yeah, look at, all right, so I'm a huge Marvin fan, and I'm a huge Robin Hood Daffy fan, right? And to me, like what you pull off in, yeah, K9, that whole like scenario, and then even, because I love Maurice Noble, I love what he did with like Wile E. Coyote cartoons and stuff like that. So it's hard for me to pick one in that setup. I would have to say, if I was leaning anywhere, my favorite is the Acme disintegration scene, because the disintegration proof vest is the best thing ever. And then that one right there, even though the Robin Hood Daffy is a close second, and I would say your IG-11 Mandalorian, right? Oh. In the latest stuff, as far as what you've come out with. I saw the live painting on that when you were working on that, dude, friggin' awestruck. And I'm like, good, sweet mercy. And you want to talk about lighting and, you know, production value to film and how you pulled that off in the actual work. There's thousands of paintings by you that I love, but like the one that, and I think I even commented like a lot on that post, was just the gloriousness of that shot, because it really brought something out. And if you understand the relationship between IG-11 and Mandalorian, and why Dave Filoni and why can't I remember his name? Iron Man. Which one?
You talk about Taika?
Yeah, no, not Taika. But the producer. You know, he did Iron Man.
Brett Favreau.
Yeah, Favreau. That's it. Yeah. And so why they wrote, and just how that relationship takes place, I thought you captured that in that piece. So between that, you can never go wrong with a Baby Yoda, and that Acme disintegration. I keep staring, and you know why too? It's because of the way you lit that planet. I'm gonna just glow all over you, man. You can you can turn the shade of red of that planet right now, because I love how you lit that. That's probably, and I want to see how that Robin Hood Daffy comes out, because I love the richness of your colors and those blues and teals and greens. But it's got to be Robin Hood Daffy. It's got to be the Marvin. What's the title of that one?
Untitled as of yet. I literally just finished them today.
Okay.
Oh, the Robin Hood.
Oh yeah, the Rob.
Maybe that's part of the situation. I'm on the robcast.studio page on the Octria site, and these images on here, they tell you what they are, but they do not do them justice. I mean, it is
No.
not even close to doing the images justice. So yeah, the Roadrunner Coyote.
Oh, wait. I didn't even get to see the whole Roadrunner. What?
No, you got to zoom in on that Roadrunner if you would for a second, because that is, I saw that on a site, and I love the body position. I love the way the action is. It just, I know.
Yeah.
This particular show, I did 5.
Wait.
5 by 14s and then 1 8 by 10. I was originally just going to do some studies of characters where it's just a moment and try and really light it and make it feel kind of cool like that. But then I just got carried away and I just went for the whole thing.
I say I vote for yes. Go for the whole thing.
Ah,
So as we look at what you've got here, what's cool to me, and especially getting to see in your studio how you work, and getting to hang out with you in person for a bit and whatnot, I would love to know. And there's a direct Chuck Jones tie-in. So George Lucas was inspired by Chuck, right? And he credits Chuck with some of his inspiration. Correct me if I'm wrong, Craig. That's a fact check, correct? Right?
yeah. Oh,
Yes.
He meant Spielberg and
So
yeah.
So that connection with George Lucas, right? To be able what if you had a geek out moment, and I'm not going to say what your geek out moment is, right? You tell me, but do you have a moment in like your career here as a fine artist that you're like, holy crap, I can't believe that happened?
George Lucas bought a number of my paintings. The first one definitely was, oh my God, I have to frame this, but then you realize you have to cash it. And then of course the story that goes with that is that the people at the bank didn't know who George Lucas was. That was always fun. And then I'm like, well, look, it says Skywalker on it, and they're like, what? And I just was like, never mind.
You just got to walk away at that point.
Yeah, you win.
That is. Do you know
So,
he has
go ahead.
paintings? Do you know where your paintings are these days?
There's many I know, but many that wonderful galleries like the Chuck Jones galleries will sell that I never get to meet the collector. I'd love to know, go visit them, but overall, I appreciate that people like the work enough to take it home with them.
Do you ever get to visit the ones that George Lucas owns?
Well, I hear that they're opening the Lucas Museum of Narrative Art. All the paintings were delivered to the organization that curates that. I don't know if they're going to be on display eventually.
Okay.
I don't want to make any promises, but that would be my guess is where they're going to go.
Yeah. So, I actually, with Chuck, went to Skywalker Ranch in the 90s, and a pretty spectacular visit. But the ones that he had collected at that point, he wasn't there that day. He was writing episode 1. So it was that far along ago, or episode 1, I think it was, he was going on. And, but he had a collection of originals that he had purchased from different artists at that point. And so he literally puts them out so he can enjoy them. And
right. Oh, that's good. I'd love to know. I mean, I'm a huge fan of not only the intellectual properties he's developed, but of the man himself. So that would be another geek out moment.
Well, I just saw that somebody said, Greg Clements said that they've got 3 in Ohio, 3 of your original paintings in Ohio. So, maybe we can get them to show your artwork to you in their home if they've got that ability while we fall here. So that'd be kind of fun.
So there was a second kind of geek out moment, and it's another Chuck tie-in. So Chuck worked for Walt back in, what was it? In the 30s?
56.
When was it?
56.
56. All right. So Chuck had worked for Walt, and we've gotten to see like his time card and stuff, which is very cool. And my apologies, you're probably going to hear my daughter riding her big wheels here right in front of me. And so I remember, you know, like obviously Walt and this inspiration, what you did, and that work with that Chuck got to do there, and being an icon. I remember walking with you in Imagineering, right? And up on the wall in the Imagineering store that only people who can go in there go, is like a bank of your artwork. And I don't think you knew that was happening. Yes.
Yeah, that was a geek out moment where I just did a tour of the most amazing art I'd ever seen. All those head sculptures that I love sculpting on the side for fun, and that room was like, oh wow. And just the overall talent level of creation that is in that building, and then to walk around the corner and see your own artwork was like, no, that didn't just happen.
I just love the look on your face, because you had that exact look, and it was kind of like, and I'm like, yeah, that's pretty much yours.
Didn't you take a picture of me in front of it?
Yes, I did. Yes.
Yeah, okay. I remember exactly now, and that's how I can prove it.
Do you have any of your just for fun sculptures hanging around your studio?
Yeah. There's one in the corner that's obviously very not for sale, but Doris is heading over to it now.
This, the Yoda?
Yeah.
Oh.
This was just for me. It's not for sale.
Yeah, I get it. That's beautiful. And only someone nice. That's so cool. Wow.
So if my wife saw that right now, she would ask, what do I need to auction off from the house, including the house itself, to get that?
It was for me. It was, I think I did it over Christmas. Most people enjoy the break for the holiday, and I actually just did something that had nothing to do with anything.
Huh. Well, yeah, that kind of works. I think that rivals some of the greatest sculptures of Yoda that I've seen. The fashion, the poses, that's amazing. Who would love to see Rob go into a little bit of sculpture out? Yeah. I mean, I happen to have, you know, Looney Tunes sculpture license in my world. So yeah, I'm imagining a few little things, but look at those things.
Oh, yeah. You got to zoom in a little closer, because I've seen some of the stuff you've done when you posted on Instagram, which if you're not following Rob Kaz on Instagram, you should be. But the fact that like 3D, going from a 2D in paint to 3D in sculpture is not super easy, but it helps give you such a better understanding. And your work already is so three-dimensional, specifically the duck and the turtle. What have you found in your creations in sculpting that has helped you in painting?
Well, this is going back to when I first worked in animation. A lot of the guys encouraged me to use maquettes if I had them, and of course we were doing things that weren't related to Disney, so I started making my own. But really, when you go back to that moment, I was creating things in the computer three-dimensionally, so my mind already kind of runs home to mama, so to speak, when I'm thinking about art, because it's all 3D to me, even if the output is 2D.
That makes a lot of sense. Chuck used to say that you got to know what the anatomy looks like, which means three dimensions, and the way that the weight works. And I think that's part of what I think is so awesome about your artwork is characters are not floating. I mean, they're believable. Chuck said that it's never important necessarily to make them realistic. It's important to make them look believable. And so, you know, everything that I look at both three-dimensionally and two-dimensionally, you know, like the way that dog right there is standing, there's weight, and yet there's the pose in that whole thing. That is just unbelievable. So
yeah, anatomy is something that even if you're doing a whimsical character, like you said, weight, I'm sure Chuck used it all the time in his artwork with squash and stretch, and you know, just the spring in a step where you see that drawn. It's not just to get things proportional, it's to get them with dynamic. And I very much love art that has a feeling of energy to it. So especially you know, Chuck Jones art, Disney art. If you stop, let's say you took like Wile E. Coyote and just stop them frame by frame, you would see weight and energy to the movements, in addition to a few explosions and splatters here and there.
In the midst of it all. But that is, it was very, very important to Chuck, that side of it. And that, I think that's one of the things that he brought to animation. And I think it's one of the things that you bring to your fine art. So the look, that's a little Beauregard look right there for sure. Oh, speaking of Beauregard, by the way, my brother still has Beauregard from 50 plus years ago. So,
oh, really? The stuff done? Yeah.
Yeah, kind of special to him and obviously to all of our memories. So that was pretty fun. But that is, wow, the asset is spectacular. Oh, man.
I will work a character out in my head as much as possible. And then like I have this elephant in here, I probably sketched 20 times before I got a proportion that I liked and also did not look like Dumbo. And worked on it and worked on it, worked on it. And I would say when you get a clean silhouette, that's probably when I would say you're in the right direction and you could probably go to canvas, because painting and sketching are definitely two different disciplines. And when you start to mix the two is when it gets a little bit like graphical. I prefer painterly, and with that, that's why I always say silhouettes, and from there everything kind of falls into place, because a strong silhouette in a painting, especially with some busier backgrounds like these have, like the star fields or the trees here, maybe not that one, but overall it really helps with that, having it pop out but still feel like it's rooted in the painting.
That's awesome. So tell me, or I tell you what, now that we're like 45 minutes into this, I think it would be great if we had some questions. So I'm going to try to, if you've got your digital hand and you want to ask a question, we'll spotlight you and get you up here with Rob. So if you can't find it, you could just wave furiously and I can see if we can find this. Is Dennis Little, are you trying to find your digital hand, man? No? Okay, fine. You look like you were moving a lot. It's good to see you today. Oh, yeah, you can share some of that bottle with everybody. That's awesome. So I'm not seeing, is there any hands up, Scott? Everybody just wants to enjoy Rob. I totally I get that. So, but I see a lot of friendly faces out here. Thank you all for coming to visit today. So, so let's see. There's something about that view, and I hope you're recording it. Scott, go on to where the side view of Rob with the dog and the 5 paintings from Looney Tunes behind. Yeah, that one. Because then we're recording this, and I get to go visit this again, because that's one of those images in my world. Because I grew up with Looney Tunes. I mean, we all grew up with Looney Tunes, but I grew up with the man who created Looney Tunes. So I'll consider that a little different. But now I get to see you with this, very, very tired dog, puppy, with all this incredible art. I will say I'm moving through, and I just got to Cute Kid, and I see that is that in your studio or is that somewhere else?
Cute. Right here. This is where I work.
No,
every day.
The painting called Cute Kid with Baby Yoda.
Oh yeah, that's the new one with it's the Yoda by himself.
Oh, that is not here.
That's
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I see it on the site, and I mean, it's a dangerous business for me to be in, because I love artwork so much, and so I continue to find things. But that Cute Kid painting, and I see that we've all come up to the realization that, or the ability, you've got it. It's priced out here at $1,588 for an original Rob Kaz. That's ridiculous. Did you know that they did this? Because I didn't know they did this. That's amazing. I'm sorry. I'm sitting here. There's a lot of things that happen in the gallery that I don't know about, and I get surprised, which is great. But so there is the ability here with the artwork for this studio visit to get some amazing opportunities, is the way I look at it. And now I'm looking at the Wookiee hug. Oh my gosh, missing Han.
Yeah.
Yeah, so one of the things that I'm just looking through your work and the brush strokes and the texture and all that stuff. Chuck didn't use the term very often, but when I believe that he would, that you can paint your ass off. I mean, really, you can paint your ass off is the way he. So, that's the good job there. I tell you what, the brush strokes that you use and the so now we're sharing stuff. I like this.
Yeah, that was the foreshadowing.
That's the piece of
That's really cool. So is Neela screen? Is everybody seeing that, or am I the only one that's seeing that?
Yeah, I'm seeing it.
Okay. So is that yours? I mean, is that your? There we go.
That's my fine art. Yeah.
That's beautiful. Yeah, you can seriously paint. That's awesome.
Now, is that the painting of the first appearance of Hudson that you didn't even know about?
Yeah. Well, I knew I painted it. I didn't know that I was going to own a dog that looked like that. A year and a half later, yeah.
That is, yeah. So that's awesome. So any other questions? If anybody's got any questions, otherwise, I know Ben is going to dominate this with questions, which I think.
No, I like and you should chime in because for one, to meet the dude is awesome, and then to get to hang out, and he's just as genuine as he is now in any situation, which is what I like about him because he's not only ridiculously talented, but he's humble about it. So, question is, do you have the sketches from these pieces, these that you just showed for the first time of the Looney Tunes works? Do you have the sketches handy that we could see?
I literally just painted them on the canvas.
All right, so that's a good segue into this.
Yeah.
Here's what I find absolutely interesting about your painting, and it's something that inspires me, right? Is you can paint the whole thing into it, and I'll just watch you go start, like, here's the Snoopy piece, right? And you'll just start painting, and you'll essentially sketch it in with your paintbrush while you're going, and you just continue to build things. That freaks me out.
Yeah, sketching is a relative term. For me, sketching is just getting an idea out to a point where I can start painting, and it doesn't always mean I'm using a pencil. With these ones, I took a liner brush and just put a little bit of I don't know, brown paint or black paint or whatever's on my palette here, and just started kind of feeling out the shapes and looking at the model sheets and trying to find my favorite scenes and go at them with my own personal voice, if you will. And sometimes I do that, sometimes I sketch, but getting back to what we were talking about with the elephant, I was sketching to get the concept refined. I wasn't sketching so that I could transpose it. And overall, for me, the whatever gets me to the final painting is only what's necessary. It's probably a little bit unromantic for an artist, but I come from that studio background where, hey man, it's all about the job. Whatever helps you get to the delivery date, do it. But no sentimentality for what happens to the reference stuff.
Well, we appreciate you allowing us into your studio and sharing the things you don't want to share, because I understand that. And not with my own work, but certainly with back to Chuck, is that he wouldn't let me necessarily into his studio. And certainly he had the home studio, and he also later on had a studio where he painted at the offices. And he didn't like unveiling it to any of us, or allowing us to come in progress, because he said that it was, even though he had a plan, he had the idea of what it was going to look like, that the next thing he knew that it changed and it started speaking to him differently, and so he'd layer on top of that and layer and layer, and it kind of grew and something changed in it. And so the story for him, he said, would actually progress throughout the weeks or months that it took him to paint it.
But that's funny you say that, because for me, much of oil painting, especially early on when I would do the background to the foreground, was kind of an ink blot test. It's what the painting gives me versus what I planned on doing. And sometimes you just got to roll with it. And again, why I don't really rely on sketches all that much, because if I am too rigid to the roadmap, then there's no fun to off-road.
And there's the fun. I think that's, and Chuck said the same thing. It's kind of uncanny the way that the similarities, it's awesome to hear. It resonates quite well. So now I know why Chuck Jones galleries are sitting in the Robcast studio, because there's a kinship here for sure. So, and I just need a puppy in my lap. I mean, that's really what happened.
I think that kinship.
So.
I think that kinship runs a little deeper also, because not only in that, but Chuck would he would give very much of himself. He would inspire other people in their creativity, right? He would mentor people. He would go, draw for kids in the hospital and stuff like that. And that segues another thing that I really appreciate about you. Could you speak a little bit about what you're not just doing this to make a living, you're doing this to impact other people, right? You're doing what you love. And so let's take that and what you're able to do with Bo, right? And your initiative for Earth Day and stuff like that. And I love the sketches and the colorings that come back from kids who you're inspiring through what you're doing, and you're boosting their imagination.
I love that you bring that up, because not a long time ago, I thought about art in terms of like, where's this all going? Like most people do when they hit 40. But the idea is that there's more to it than a pretty picture. So for me, the inspiration of children or adults to think more consciously about the world is something that's near and dear to me. And obviously I'm a big animal fan. Doing things that, make people more aware of, like manatees, for example. I have a lot of works that I've started to paint with manatees, because they are a creature that, for a very long time was under threat. And a child might come up and look at my painting and see that the manatee, and then maybe that's a teachable moment for me or anyone else who's standing there. But speaking to the art contest, the hardest part of that is judging it, because everybody wins. The amount of feedback and positivity that I think we all need right now is really incredible to see these children interacting and thinking about the world and providing their own message as well. And I always say, when I'm judging, I always weight the ones that have that positive Earth Day message a little bit higher, because that means they get it. And as an artist, to put a footprint on the world that isn't carbon is an amazing thing.
That's well said. I tell you, I think for many of us, and Chuck imbued this early, that he did what he loved to do, but he also did it because he wanted to inspire people to think differently and to live differently, to live more giving to each other. That was part of his whole. And he described that if we're all laughing together, we can't hate each other. And so that was his mentality, that the best that he could do in any given day was to help somebody with a little more joy in their life. And so, and maybe if something came to him that was philosophical or they thought might impact somebody, he'd share it, and he wouldn't be ashamed or shy to share it. So it's great that you have seen your ability with your platform, and that's always an overused word, with your talent and your joy of what you're doing, and been able to communicate with especially young people who have a lot longer to impact the world. I figure that if we all impact 10-year-olds versus 70-year-olds, there's a lot more years that they can kind of spread that joy and impact out. I still want to impact the 70 and 80-year-olds, because we might as well impact everybody. But hey, I look at it as not just the impact today, but the impact over the next, 10, 20, 50 years. And so what you're doing, I think, is going to ripple and continue. So thank you for having that in mind during this whole part of your career. Because when my team and your team got together and said, well, let's do this, I'm like, Rob's the nicest guy basically in the world, so I'd love to hang out with him for a while in a studio. Let's do that more. So
Obviously, you don't know me then.
No, well, see, that's what people say about me too. They're like, "Oh, you're such a nice guy." I'm like, "Who told you that?" But that's all right. Let's take, if there's one more question, because we're straight up at 5, and we made an agreement with Zoom. No, we didn't make any agreements with Zoom. I've got, we can go on for days and days here, but any last questions? Put your digital hand up, or put something in the text message. Otherwise, we are going to. I'm looking. Everybody, the comments in here are awesome. That the expletives of incredible and awesome and beautiful and wonderful and gorgeous, and it really is. That's what it feels like every time that someone shares one of your paintings or we get a sight into it. I can tell you're having a great time. So really appreciate you having us into your studio today, and I hope that we'll be able to next time see some of these paintings on the walls of the folks that are in here, because they'll share their screen and show where they now live. It's kind of like that. My mom always said that this whole process of my part of it and her part of it is an adoption service. And so people are like, well, how can you get rid of these? It's like, no, it's an adoption service. You got to find the right painting, the right artwork, and with the right person. And when you put them together, magic happens, and then that gets to go off. So I think that's what our business is here. For what I do is to find people, the right person to adopt your wonderful artwork. So I appreciate that we're able to do that with you. So, well, Rob, I think, Ben, you got anything else?
Yeah, I'm going to add one last thing. Let's watch Rob turn a shade of pink. And I would just like to say that it's one thing to, I respect you greatly as an artist and as a creative. I think you are incredibly talented and inspirational. Even more so, I respect you as a human being, right? And because of who you are and your character, man. And it's absolutely 100% genuine. And it's what yes, you wiped that. And why that's so important to me is because it's one thing to see and to really appreciate someone's art. And then when you meet the artist and you connect with them, like we're doing with you today, it is an emotional take on why I want a piece that you have. Because of everything that you embody, you put it into your work, and that's who you are. That's why you're so successful. So they should be doing the buy it now, right? And I absolutely love you, man. You're a fantastic person. Thank you so much for coming out and doing this.
Thank you. I mean, I just want to cap this off with, I don't even know how to thank you. Thank you. That is, the words that I've heard today from people that I see, maybe once a year is just phenomenal. Like, I don't even know how to respond. That's just, it's too generous, but thank you. And Chuck Jones, everyone from the Coleman Publishing team, Acme, Collector's Editions, who are providing the artwork today, to my wife, who's manning the cameras, to the dog, who's probably getting in trouble. Chuck Jones, thank you.
Well,
Ben, peace, Ben.
Hey, Scott, let's go to if you don't mind, just right now for a grid view. And if anybody wants to unmute themselves, go ahead and allow everybody to unmute themselves. And if you want to say anything, just all as a group or whatever, we did this at the red dot and it was kind of fun. So Scott, why don't you just unmute everybody for a second? I'm still seeing red. If you can do it. I don't think I've got the power.
Good to see you, Rob.
There it is.
Thank you, Rob.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Now I'm nervous.
So many very smiling faces in here. So thank you all. All right. Well,
Thank you, Rob.
I don't know.
To the Vader and Luke.
I think stay tuned for the Creativeside chats, because rumor has it that we may just have Jeannie Schultz in a couple of weeks. So
Holy cow.
her,
There we go.
Jeannie Schultz, and into the museum up in Northern California. So keep your eye out for that, and we'll hopefully be back here in a couple weeks and be with Jeannie. So have a great rest of your day, everybody.
Thanks again, Rob.
Thanks, Craig.
Absolutely. May the force be with you.
Bye, everybody.
Here, everybody.